Mistakes are always forgivable if one has the courage to admit them. The Bible says, "Get rid of all your bitterness, rage, and anger, brawling and slander, along with every form of malice. Be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other, just as God forgave you." This episode is the conclusion of Forgive Me, Part 2.
Don't you see that your faith is coming alive? Don't you see that it's tested every time? He's the one that makes your life divine. He's the one that makes you feel fine. Your faith's being tested.
Have faith, let it begin. Hello everyone, this is Angel, and welcome to another episode of Have Faith, Let It Begin. You saw the title. It said, Forgive Me, Part 2. The reason why I decided to put a quick Part 2 on this is because in the last 16 hours since the Forgive Me episode aired, I had a lot of people write to me and ask me what it is exactly that I was not happy about what I'd done. And, I'll be honest with you, when I was doing that episode, it was hard to get it out. And now that I've been 16 and 20 hours removed from that episode and having that feedback, I made a promise to all of you. I never wanted to hold anything back, so I'm not going to. And I apologize for not being able to get that out of my system on that episode, so I'm going to get detailed now. We talked about forgiveness. We talked about, forgiving those that have wronged us and being forgiven for doing things that you're not too proud of. So, let me be clear. Back in 2001 to 2003, I went on a 2-year depression because of a breakup that I had. Depression was very hard for me. It was losing my first love and losing it in a way where most of us can't even imagine. She broke my heart, and at the same time as I was dealing with that, I got an offer to transfer to, well, actually it wasn't an offer. I lost my job, and they offered to extend my job, but I had to transfer. So they gave me a couple options, and I picked the one that was closest to home. So I picked Providence, Rhode Island. I went there with no friends, no family, just me and my pet dog, Buster B. And I went there and not knowing that the position that I took was going to be one of the hardest also 2 to 3 years of my life, because I was involved in a very hostile work environment. As some of you already concluded that series, it was the negativity series, 3-part series, started last Thursday, Friday, and ended this past Monday. Well, during this depression and during this hostile work environment that I was under, which is still no excuse for my actions, for the record, I was driving. There were times where I'd get lonely at home, and I would drive the car, or I would take the long way home, and I didn't have a very long commute from the office to my apartment at the time, but I made it so that I made my commute home longer than usual. One day, I was just filled with so much anger. I was heartbroken, I was sad, I was upset, I was frustrated, I was crying, it was just, everything had happened all at once. I had just got off the phone with my ex, who asking me for money to pay some of the rent, which I wasn't even living there anymore. I was dealing with my job, which consistently told me that, I was worthless. They were telling me that I should never have came there. And I was dealing with another shift manager who was constantly trying to steal my agents. traffic lights away from being home. And I got stuck behind this one traffic light. And you ever get stuck at a traffic light and you're waiting and, there was a song on the radio that came on, and it was a song that reminded me of my ex. And in that moment, I just lost track of time. I lost, at that time, I lost focus. I was, I was thinking back when, of a memory, and I was playing it in my head. And at that moment, I didn't realize that the light turned green. I was the first car at that traffic light, and all I kept hearing was the honking of a horn. And I looked up in the rearview mirror and I said, "Oh wow, I'm not paying attention." And you could tell that the guy was upset, rightly so. I wasn't paying attention. And we get to the next traffic light and it's red again, and the guy is still so upset at me from the last traffic light. He's still honking his horn. And as I looked through the rearview mirror, I don't know what came over me, but it was almost as if I wasn't seeing the person that was moving his hands in the car and, sticking his finger out, pointing at me and constantly honking the horn. He was clearly upset. I saw if it was my boss. I saw if it was my ex. And without even thinking, I got out of the car. And I rushed toward the vehicle. And I proceeded to just yell, curse, point, scream, cry, you name it. Almost like a wild man. Not proud of this, folks. I'm really not. And as I was doing that, the person in the car, literally was so taken back by my actions that they were cringing, and they were kind of leaning more toward the passenger, because they were thinking, this guy's a nut. This guy could hurt me. And I literally put my head in their window. And when I saw who it was, it woke me up. It was an elderly man. It bothered me because that's not me. It wasn't me. I've always respected my elders. Here I am at 22, 23 years old, and I'm yelling at an older gentleman. Yes, there's, maybe he was honking the horn a little bit too excessively. Maybe he was a little bit overly upset for something that, we take, we just gotta learn to keep our cool. I get that, but there's no excuse for bad behavior. And what I know now and what I didn't know then was that expression that I live by now, and that is, if you're right and you're rude, then you're wrong. I was right that he was maybe honking the horn excessively. I was wrong for not focusing on my driving, and certainly I was wrong for getting out of the vehicle and acting immature and acting in this fit of rage. When I finally realized it was an elderly man, I just started crying, and I looked at him and I said I was sorry. And then I just got back in my car and went home. When I went home that night, I didn't like what was happening to me. I had become this sad, bitter, angry individual. And it really broke my heart. I cried myself to sleep many nights that weekend. And, some of you may think this is corny, but it's a big part of my life. And people say things about pets. There's a lot of people out there, I know my brother especially, he's like, when you have a pet dog, I used to say, he's like my son, he's like my member of the family. And my brother would always say, it's just a dog, suck it up. It's, the dogs don't, they're just pets. Well, let me tell you, if it wasn't for my pet dog, Buster B, during this time, he was a little chihuahua, God rest his soul. He died in 2011. But if it wasn't for him, I probably wouldn't have gotten over my crying fit and my depression. Because during that weekend when I was literally crying myself to sleep every night, the dog jumped up, and we weren't that close at the time because he was the only thing I had left from the breakup. He jumped on the bed, and a little chihuahua, and he jumped up on the bed and he looked at me, and he made this noise that he never made before. You know, he was like, I'm going to do a bad impression, but he was just like, you know, and it made me look at him like, I've never heard you do that before. And it was almost as if him telling me, please don't cry. You know, I don't want to see you cry. And I stopped crying. And I looked up at him and I said, okay, I'll stop crying. I went and took him out with me and walked, and then I took him in the car and we took another ride, and we stopped at a fast food place and I gave him french fries, and I stopped crying after that. But, you know, the silver lining of this whole thing is you should never disrespect anyone. You should never take things out on other people when you're battling things, when you're going through things. If anything, you should always look for help. You should always look to talk to someone. And if you have no family, if you have no friends, churches are a great place. You don't have to attend church to be welcomed in the church. Every church welcomes you. I don't care what type of religion. Any religion that tells you you're not welcome unless you join is not a religion, in my opinion. Every house that is labeled a church is a welcoming place for anyone. And that's for every and any race, for any type of world that you live in, any type of lifestyle you live. We are all welcome in the house of God. And that was really what I wanted to talk to you all about. I apologize to our viewers for not sharing that story when I should have on the episode. Forgive me. But I know that it had to be said. And that's one of the things in my past that I'm not crazy about. I'm embarrassed about it. But I've learned from my mistakes, and I've learned from doing things that you're not supposed to do. And that's really where this episode ends. I didn't have a big intro for this, and I'm not going to have a big outro. All I'm going to say is respect your elders. Respect those that are around you. Respect people that are trying to help you and people that are not trying to help you. Love thy neighbor as you love yourself. That's what the good book says. And that's how we'll end it today. I hope everybody has a great week. And remind you all that we will be back on the air tomorrow at 7 a.m. for our Have Faith, Let It Begin live show. We hope that you can join us. We will be available this Friday, that's tomorrow, October 12th, 2018 at 7 a.m. for our live show. You can download us and watch us live on our Facebook like page. We will be available live via Spreaker, and the chat room will be open for any questions, comments, suggestions for titles. For Have Faith, Let It Begin, my name is Angel.
Don't you see that your faith is coming alive?